freedom, disclosure, equality, consciousness. This is GFM Media with Brendan D. Murphy and Amy Devlin, and you are the global freedom movement. New consciousness, new media.
For me, it's such an important topic to be addressing because we do have such a bridge to build between those two, and it means that if we do build that bridge, then our future is much better off than if we didn't. So I'm really excited about looking into this because it's a major healing modality, and it can heal people on a personal level. But I feel that it could also heal our culture and our world. So that's what's exciting for me.
Absolutely. We've got so much to talk about with Steve. We started getting into it before the show actually kicked off, and we're going to have to sort of rewind and bring it back to the start for everyone. Steve, are you there and can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, mate. It's a privilege to have you on to chat about this week. Perhaps we could start with the basics and you could let everyone know who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Well, first off, you've got to understand how this came about. And I'm actually an Aboriginal descendant. Now, the Aboriginal culture is over 60,000 years old, one of the oldest cultures in the world. And it lived in the past, it lived by the laws of law, and law, L-O-R-E, is the universal knowledge. They understood everything in nature was alive, and they would communicate to the spirit of the trees, the rocks, the plants, the animals. They sit around at night time, what was known as the dream time, and they'd call through the spirit of the animal. They requested to donate itself. It would donate its vehicle, and the next day, there's the vehicle, the kangaroo or the emu, and the soul was in fight or flight. But when the spirit donates its vessel, it's there, it could evolve up into another species, into another vehicle, or into a human vehicle. It could evolve through time. And they're aware of this. Now, what took place here in this country was stolen generation took away most of this knowledge. Most was being forgotten. As a 4-year-old, my mother sat me down, wanted to know how I knew things were happening, because I was actually telling her the future before it happened. And I remember sitting down saying, well, doesn't everybody remember the past? She said, no. Now, I know of cases today where 4-year-old kids have been given electric shock treatment for remembering things they claim don't exist. The past exists. And you've got to understand we are multidimensional beings in a multidimensional world. So I'll give you an idea of down the generational line. So this was a spirit coming in with the knowledge, but the vehicle itself has all the soul memory of the ancestors. When it's born in your mother and father, mother's father, and all the way through time, all these are in the little baby as a fractals of the hologram of time. We're dealing with cases and we bring through the spirit of the great-great-grandmother, Lincoln's stolen generation. And she'll be crying her eyes out of the person on the table. What took place? They've just come and taken my children. I can't afford to love any more of my children because I don't know when they come and take the rest. So she shut down. That now passed what science today call epigenetics, down the generational line, affecting generations. We work on people this level here, and one particular case here we worked on, went back working with the youth to become Australian of the Year. Down my genetic line, my great-grandma was taken away at the age of 8 by Aboriginal Protection Agency. She was found in horse shackles at 14 because they couldn't control her. She was a free spirit. She was sold to a drover and died at 15, giving birth to my grandmother. My grandmother was brought up in cattle station, very well educated by the church, but the maids, the butlers, the gardeners, they took her under the wing and they taught her the old ways. As I grew up, she talked about the old ways, that would trigger off more knowingness in me on my own past. By the time I was 8 years old, I could make water go around my finger without touching it. By the time I was a teenager, I was doing mind magic. Hilarious things at parties. But my question is, what am I doing? How am I doing this? I wanted to know. So I spent 40 years researching to understand how the universe works and the laws of law. It's fascinating. Our universe is such a simple place when you understand it. And as multidimensional beings, which we are, we have a spirit. We have a soul, we have a physical, we have many dimensions of us, and other dimensions out there can interfere with many dimensions of us. So as we move through time, we've got to understand who we really are and what's really going on out there. So some of the areas today, we have thoughts that actually create, you actually capture free energy from the sun in the form of electrons. The electrons become captured as inverted electroenergy flux. They spiral into a mathematical formula within you, and they become the thought. That thought can become a thought form. The thought form evolves to a life form. The life form, once it evolves, has a right to survive. So it will reproduce itself as a fractal to a hologram, and you're the hologram. Fractals reproduce. What takes place is you become the host of your own creation. Now there's your prisoners stuck in time, repeating over and over the same thing until we unfold time and space on that dimension. And time will loop itself upon that dimension. It changes the right angles and puts you outside time and creates a new time track outside time. Then what was on that time track is no more, and all of a sudden you're on a new time track by changing time. You know, we've worked on some of the most violent men in the prison system, full of violence. Prison guards, they thought it was a great joke because they said, this is impossible. They're laughing their heads off, and what happened? I said, give me the worst man you got. They said, you're on. So they gave me this man who was so full of violence, straight back to 2 years old. His mother and father were alcoholics and drug addicts. He who's born under the dimension of another is governed by the laws of that dimension. Because he was born under the dimension, he knew nothing but violence all his life. The moment we unfolded time and space in that dimension back to its juncture, looped time, changed at right angles, put him outside time, you couldn't believe how humble the guy was with gratitude. He didn't want to be that way, stuck in time. Well, we've found that everything created is its own dimension of time, from its beginning to its end. You have what's known as a lifetime. The day you're born to the day you die is the time track of your life. But you've had many lifetimes of separate time tracks linked to the universal time track. If any time we go back and you had a trauma around your death, then what takes place, that trauma will be stuck in time and it will reproduce itself. Now, let's have a look. I talk to doctors at some of the children's hospitals and they say to me, 50% of the cases, we have no idea what's wrong with them. I'll tell you why you have no idea what's wrong with them, because the spirit brings through trauma of the past and sets it up in the first 7 years. These aren't getting dealt with. So you've got to deal with that trauma. I'm like a little 4-year-old boy. Here's my case. Like a little 4-year-old boy. He wakes up screaming at night. The body jerks and jolts in the bed. The parents sleep with him to try and keep him pacified. We say with the little boy, his spirit straight to the mother. Now he's talking out of the mother. We go back into a past life. He's in England driving a train on a one-way track. Another train coming the other way. He's panicking, trying to stop the train. Head-on collision. He's killed. His 4-year-old son's killed on the train. The moment he hit 4 years old, it triggered a sleeper, and he's trying to stop the train in his sleep. The moment we unfold time and space and dimension, change the dimension, he's now sleeping peaceful at night because we've cleared the dimension that he was stuck in.
Wow.
This is one of thousands. I mean, I've been 40 years. I've now trained over 700 students in 31 countries around the world how to deal with some of the areas we're dealing with. So here's your thoughts and your thought forms. Now let's go into some of the bigger stuff out there. I was awarded 2005 Life Awards from Suicide Prevention Australia. I've been nominated for Australian of the Year, and I've been nominated for Human Rights Medal Awards. The suicides. I dealt with a community where there was suicides constantly. We had 13 kids on suicide. So going in to look at these kids on suicide, and what we did, we worked on some of the kids, and I put my Aboriginal assistant on the table. And I said, scan the community. I want to find out what we're dealing with. We scanned the community, and all of a sudden, whoa, I haven't seen this one before. What is it? Like a big jellyfish with tentacles. How far does it go back? Pompeii. How's it linked? Alcohol. How's it linked? Oh, I see. As they drink alcohol, this thing latches onto it, works down the tentacle, gets it to commit suicide, and absorbs the soul. He's known as a cluster.
Wow.
He gathers people of similarity on another level up here, and he's feeding up the tentacles up through him, and he's manipulating the suicide. So what we do is we bring all the spirits through that were taken out by this being. We unfold time and space, bring the spirits through. We deal with their trauma back in time, then unfold time and space back at the juncture. We change the past, the present for the future. Then we release all the spirits. This thing shrinks to nothing, lock me into a dimension. 14 months later, we go back to the community, and the community police come to us. They say, before you came, we were averaging 3 attempted suicides a week. We have not had one attempted suicide in 14 months. since you cleared out.
Wow.
We took out the cluster. We're finding these things over whole communities, over whole cities. This is another level up. Let's go back. The thought becomes a thought form, becomes a life form. The life form now seeks survival. You're the host. Your action and your reactions, your reactions are feeding it. As your reactions feed it, it's learning about you. It's becoming smart, just like the kid. It's becoming smart. It's learning what makes it tick. It's learning what makes you tick. So as it gets smarter and it gets bigger and you keep feeding it, it eventually evolves into an internal entity. Once he takes over, you have a compulsive disorder. Sometimes there's multiple ones in there. You get multiple personalities. You get the bipolar, schizophrenic, whole range of other labels I want to put on it. The reality is we're dealing with other dimensions. Mm. When those dimensions are cleared, brought up and cleared and taken out, they're no longer there. Therefore, you're back into sanity again. We go in and we look at, with the thoughts for the thought form to life forms, we also have what's known as assumptions and beliefs. Now, your assumptions and beliefs, while you assume it to be, you believe it to be. While you assume it to be, you believe it to be, it is. Whatever you believe it to be is in your reality, but how can your spirit show you if you've got a belief system blocking it off? Mm. Now we go into some of the spirit animals. Everything. The tree is alive because it has a spirit. If the tree was dead, the spirit would have departed. When your body's dead and your spirit departs, you're dead. There's a vehicle there, but it has no more spirit, no life form to it. The spirit comes into the heart at the moment of conception. It's there. The little baby, when it's born, has the soul memories of all the ancestors within it. The moment the baby is born, you're projecting your thoughts and your projections upon that child. It's taking on those beliefs within the cells and they become part of the soul. The soul is constantly repeating the cycles of time to grow and to learn to try and take over the vehicle. The spirit link to the heart, it's inside there, it's there, it's trying to say, hey, don't go there, don't do that. But the ego of man decides not to listen and run the show himself. While he's running the show himself, well, of course, how can your poor little spirit assist you where it needs to be? Let's go back to Aboriginal culture. Aboriginal culture, they listen to the spirit. They listen to the spirit of the trees. When they went hunting, the tree would tell them where the food was. The animal would donate itself because everything is alive in nature. I was having a conversation with a heart surgeon recently, and the heart surgeon was telling me about when they change hearts, when people die in the heart process of changing and they resuscitate and bring them back. So many people say they saw Satan, they saw an angel, they saw the uncle, they saw the aunt, they saw Jesus. They saw, and he's saying, I don't understand what this is. And I said, well, interesting. Well, tell you an interesting story. We went to Spain and we surrogated a mummy, an Egyptian mummy that was travelling around. We surrogated him. We wanted to know what was going on. So when we surrogated the Egyptian mummy into one of the students, I brought it through. What do you do? I rule. Who do you rule? I rule my slaves and my servants that died and came through with me. Okay, that's interesting. What else do you do? I move now to dimensions. But I come back to this dimension, I rule. Well, the slaves and servants, they all died with the intent they're going to be ruled. The mummy died with the intent it's going to rule. What we've found is whatever your intent is at death, you're going to manifest in that reality. Mm. But eventually you've got to come back to relive the cycles of time because whatever you've done under law, man is responsible for his thought, his word, his deed, and his actions. And no man can escape the cycles of time. Whatever you've put out and done are going to come back onto you. You can't escape it. So now let's look at the animal spirits. You hear people out there with Tourette's, barking like a dog and plucking like a chicken. Well, I've worked on many people with animal spirits in them. I mean, one of the best ones, I had a guy, he came to me and he had both his arms snapped backwards, three broke, and across the elbows was all stitching where they'd been stitched back together. He had three broken ribs by an invisible force.
Wow.
Haven't had that one. What happened? We went to a party 9 years ago, got drunk, woke up the next morning, there's a guy in my chest, belted the daylights out of me, accused me of stealing. I had no idea what he was talking about, but I've never been so petrified my entire life. From that day on, this thing surfaced. It was huge. It picked me up, threw me down flights of stairs, broke both my arms, broke 3 of my ribs. Another time it jumped into my girlfriend, ripped hunks of hair out of my head, clawed me. I want to get rid of it. I said, I bet you do. Yes, I've seen over 20 psychiatrists and psychologists and counsellors. They all freak out. I says, no problem, on the table. So I guess on the table, I call this thing up, and he physically starts to shapeshift. His mouth extends out. He's yawning these long yawns and belching, something like 20 times my size, belching away on the table. I thought, what in the hell have I got here? How far back in time does this take place? Then speaking out of him instantly. His spirit said, 1,500 years ago. Thank you. Go there. What's happened? I'm a hunter. Thank you. What happened? I hunted down a bear. Thank you. And what happened? I got close to the bear. I thought it was dead. It was still alive. It turned on me, bit off my right arm, bit off my left arm, and clawed me to death. Now you go to the maths and geometry of the universe. He and the bear both died in an integrated universe of fear, which has been integrated, and they've been sleeping together for 1,500 years. When the man had never been so petrified, that dimension was now overlaid in present day. The spirit of the bear is here and he wants out. Thank you very much. So I had to bring the spirit of the bear up, send him back 1,500 years. I had to change the past and the present for the future, put him aside. Send the man back 1,500, change the past, the present, for the future, what took place. Release the spirit of the bear. The guy got up and said, my God, makes so much sense. For years I've had nightmares about being attacked by a bear, but that's not all. Look at this. He took his shirt off. His chest, his backside were covered in hairs 1.5 to 2 inches long. The thing was morphine through into him because both were in the one field. That takes me to a pile of other research which we're doing now with other things in bodies, but I won't get into that just yet. So, let's look at animal spirits. If you killed an animal, and let's go back a few lifetimes ago, and most of them were hunters, so we'd kill an animal, but if we didn't kill an animal for our food source, and we didn't put out the spirit of the animal to donate itself, we just went out to kill him for the fun of killing it, then what would take place? That spirit, because we destroyed his vehicle, has a right to jump our vehicle, and he can be in there for thousands of years. All he needs is a trigger to activate the sleeper. Once the sleeper's activated, he's awake, and he is now overriding himself in present day. We have found so many animal spirits in people through time. Now let's go to the human spirits. With a human spirit, if you went to war, or if you killed a human, or if you were responsible for the death of a human, then that spirit, because you destroyed his vehicle, has a right to your vehicle. I'll give you a couple of cases here. I got a woman who's had 3 spinal operations. She comes to me, this is 40 years later, she's riddled with pain still. We get her on the table, the spirit says, hey, you can go there. She's screaming hysterically on the table, I totally forgot. What happened? Had a head-on collision in a car when I was 18. Thank you. What happened? The other woman died. Thank you. I check, and what's in her? The spirit of the other woman. I bring her up. You should have heard her. She was ropeable because this woman was careless and had killed her. So my thing is to understand spirit. Everything's happening now. It's happened before. Everything's happening now. Will happen again. You don't want the same thing happening again, do you? No, let's unfold time and space and change the dimension. Unfold time and space, put her outside time, release the spirit. Instantly, all the spinal issues she had disappeared. The woman in the car died of spinal injuries. She was now jumped into her body, and the woman's living for 40 years. The spinal injuries of the spirit that was in her because she lived in the traits of that spirit. We have people, animals live in the traits of the animal within them. Now let's look at soldiers of war. Soldiers of war. I've dealt with ex-Viet soldiers 40 years after Vietnam War, and I have spirits of Viet Cong speaking Vietnamese out of the body. I unfold time and space, change what took place, and I release the spirit and no more mental trauma. I worked on a soldier in America recently who's on trauma leave, and he fired a mortar into a village. He's got 3 spirits in him. Great the mental trauma. Brought him up, released him, he's fine. I've worked with soldiers that have been in Iraq, Afghanistan. I've worked with soldiers that have been in Somalia and seen atrocities, felt sorry they walked around the corner and the young girls died and he's jumped straight in them. You've got to understand the universe and its laws. To clear these soldiers, one needs to understand how to access these dimensions and to bring up what's in there and take them out. Instead, we have a system out there today that pumps drugs and medication into them, which then opens wormholes to other dimensions and lets bigger beings in. And they're worse. These beings, yes, they want the soldiers to commit suicide. This is about harvesting. They want them to harvest the souls. They want them back here for the next cycle of time. This is why today mental health's gone through the roof. You've got mentally unstable men running mental health. You've really got to understand what's going on out there. What takes place is some of this medication dumbs you and numbs you, which lowers your resistance. It now lets other forces in that can now take over. These forces want your vehicle. If they can get you to commit suicide, then they've harvested the soul. The word repossession is exactly that, to repossess the vehicle for the future. So let's go back down. We can bring in a tree and have a spirit of a tree talking out of you, which we've done on many occasions.
Wow.
There are no secrets. When you understand nature, there are no more secrets because nature sees it all and just understand how to communicate to it. We go in and we look at some of the different types of animal spirits that are in there with people. I had a young bloke, and he's funny. He's an 11-year-old boy, and he's in the car with his parents, and he's sniffing the air. And in the morning, he gets up early, he goes down, he touches certain rocks and certain plants on the property. And the parents feel there's something wrong here. They take him to the psychiatrist. First, they take him to the doctor, and the doctor says, something wrong here, he needs to see a psychiatrist. So they take him to the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist says, look, we need to lock him up, medicate him and monitor him. They said, no way. They brought him to me. 11-year-old boy, put him on the table. His spirit indicate 8 years old. Thank you. Go there now. What's happening? I'm on the mountaintop with my dad. Thank you. What's happening? We're doing a ritual. Thank you. And what sort of ritual are you doing? I'm calling through my spirit totem. Thank you. And what's your spirit totem? Spirit of the kangaroo. When's the kangaroo come out? Morning and evenings. So I asked, Spirit, this spirit of kangaroo in the body? He said, yes, thank you, step aside. Spirit of kangaroo, surface now. Why'd you invade the body? Speaking about me, he said, he called me in. Thank you. I unfolded time and space. We released the spirit of the kangaroo and instantly the compulsive disorder stopped. We're doing this all the time with kids. Yeah, if it was a little Aboriginal kid, it would let go of the spirit. You go to corroborate, watch the Aboriginal kid, you'll call him the spirit of the goanna. Watch him run like a goanna. Spirit of kangaroo, watch him up like a kangaroo. Then let's go of the spirit of the animal because they know how to do it. This little white boy had no idea what he was doing, you see. Just one of many of the things. Now we get to the bigger things, and that is that, remember, your thought becomes a thought form, becomes a life form. The life form has a right to survive. As you keep feeding it internally, and you feed it by actions and reactions, it evolves into an internal entity. Once it turns the internal entity, it takes over the compulsive disorder. One day you may say, that's it, I've had enough. And your sheer determinism lets go of it. He's on the loose. He needs another body. Where's he going to go? The local pub, thank you very much. Whoever's on drugs and alcohol, the door's open, party time, thank you very much. And he's party time. That's the internal, the external entity. Let's work our way up to the bigger boys. For thousands of years, we have had other dimensions manipulating our dimension. These beings manipulating our dimension. Go back, remember the Aztecs at the last cycle. There was 30,000 people had the hearts ripped out virtually in a day to traumatise the spirits and to entrap them to the harvest of time for the future. We're coming up, we're in the conjunction now. This is the time, this is the end of the cycle. There's a lot of panicking going on out there on other dimensions for beings. They need as many beings stuck in the game. We don't want you to evolve, thank you very much, they need you back in the game. So they're trying to create as much pandemonium as they can to traumatise and keep you in the game. Mm-hmm. So what takes place is that when we have these beings through rituals thousands of years ago, then you've got to start understanding dimensions again. If their dimension takes one cycle around the sun, thus the world of their dimension, that's 3,600 Earth cycles for one Shah, thus one cycle. If you made initiation and ritual of these beings thousands of years ago, he who enters the game of another is subject to the laws of the game. What takes place? You enter their game. Once you enter their game, they can set up the game with the cycles of similarity through time, and every lifetime they'll try and get a trigger triggered to get access so they can eventually keep taking over. Each time they do this, they start to morph into the vehicle, morph through the vehicle. We've had things sitting up on the table with eyes like reptilian splits in them, hissing and spitting at us when we bring them up to take them out. nothing surprises me anymore than what we've seen and what we've dealt with. We have physical metamorphosis at times taking place on the table, which we're never taught exists. The reality is, when you see it, you realise we are not what we think we are. We are multidimensional beings in a multidimensional world. And there are many dimensions that want to take over this dimension, but they need to manipulate this dimension for their own agenda for the future. You know, one of the things that really concerns me at present is CERN.
Right.
The proton accelerator. Watch this. Every time they've turned that on, go in and have a look. Wormhole over Australia, wormhole over Thailand, wormhole over Norway, wormhole over Russia, wormhole over China. A physical wormhole appears in the sky. Well, watch this. If you were to create a wormhole in your energy field, other things would come in and you'd be taken over. They're physically creating wormholes in the ionosphere. In 6 days' time, on the 14th of this month, they're turned on to 14 trillion electron volts, 1 to the square to the cube. I believe they're going to either do two things. They're going to let mass beams through into this world. They're already here now because the times have opened it. Some of the new beings that come through are linked to what they call the pandemic of the future. These are the ones that are coming through ice, the crack, the meth. Very big, powerful beings. I've dealt with a few of them. They're very big. They're very powerful. We can take them out like all the rest because they're invaders. Anything that invades our dimension, we have the rights to this dimension. We just have to understand how to apply the laws to take control of this dimension. You have men of high position out there today, and they join up all these secret societies. When they raise their hand and join a secret society, they enter the game of another, and they are now subject to the laws of the game of the being they enter. It's understanding who controls the game. You enter their game, you are subservient to their game. You've got to understand how to apply the laws to control the game and bring them into your game, and you can deal with them. You can take them out. We can change our world. Enough people are aware of this and what's going on, enough people trained, we can make massive changes. We're already doing some very interesting things. I won't go into some of the research we're doing because we're doing some very unusual research, but we get results.
Well, that's the bottom line, isn't it?
The thing is, our world is not what we think it is. We have been so programmed, and we've been running programs all our life from the day we were born, the school, from the church, programs. And our poor little spirits in there saying, hey, don't go there, listen to me. But we're not listening to it. We think the answer's out there, so what are they doing? They're calling the gods, the angels, the guides, the masters. They're calling everything external to internal. Hey, the key's in here. The key's inside with your spirit. When you align yourself with the spirit, you are very powerful, and they are petrified of man's spirit when he aligns himself. But meanwhile, the game's set up that the answer's not in here with most people, it's out there. Why would you need anything outside yourself when your spirit can rearrange this universe? It can create anything you want in this universe. It has the ability to manifest. It manifests realities. We need to understand how to get back to our spirit. We need to understand what cultures 60,000 years ago, how they lived in line with nature. Instead, we have a world that's trying to control nature. I'll tell you now, the more you try to control nature, the more nature's going to control you. You've got to understand the equal opposite of this universe. So over here, we have these men of high positions using occultism. The equal opposite of occultism is law, L-O-R-E. It is a fail-safe mechanism of the universe to keep balance. And we have to understand how to apply it. There are so many cases and unusual cases we're getting results with. You know, we've done, and I'm talking about thousands of miles away, we're surrogating kids in from around the world into some of our students, working on them, sending them back, and we're getting results. We're doing some work right now. We've been working with a number of kids with autism. It's really interesting because kids with autism won't look in the eye. Neither will the entity.
Yes.
So we go back and we find the cause, the effect of what took place with the child. We change the dimension, then we go and look for the entity. We take out the entity, next day the kids look at them in the eye.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah, there's a whole range of other. We've been in a hospital where people are classified as vegetables. You have a car accident, your body throws trauma. So what do? They give you anticonvulsive drugs, which are paralysing drugs. And then they say you're a vegetable. Of course you're a vegetable. They've just paralysed you. We go in, the eyes are open, acknowledge the spirit acknowledge, blink 4 times for yes, 3 times for no, and it starts blinking. Thank you. Now we go in and we use nature and its laws. We hit the anticonvulsive drugs at 180 degrees, blow them out of the system, then get spirit. If you have a short circuit in your house, what happens? Your main board gets thrown. We get the spirit to go and turn the switches on again. We've got people in there with vegetables now walking, talking, and communicating.
Wow.
You've got to understand the universe and its laws. Instead, we go to end product. You know, we have the scientists, we have the professor, we have, you know, the government saying, oh, yes, but everything you do is only anecdotal evidence. We need empirical evidence. And I say, wait, empirical evidence is science. Science says every action has a counter-reaction. Every cause has an effect. We're changing the cause, thus we're dealing with the cause, we're changing the effect. You're dumbing and numbing the effect, and you call that empirical. There's something wrong with the system. Why aren't they getting results? Because there's something wrong with the system. You've got the wrong men advising governments out there.
Oh, yeah.
Sure do.
I think we have some entity issues there as well, perhaps.
Big ones at the top level. Big ones.
Yes.
And need to be clear. So there are so many areas. You know, we've taken cleaning photography before and after sessions, and you see the energy field of a person with holes in the aura, and over here, when we've finished, another photograph totally balanced. You know, you can prove these things, but our main system doesn't want to change anything because it goes into the too hard basket. That means everything would have to change, and that's too hard. Instead, we'd rather throw millions of dollars at things that aren't working and nothing at things that do work. You know, we've never had 1 cent of funding in all the work we've done in 40-odd years. No funding whatsoever. The only funding we ever get is we teach. That gives us money to go back into communities and do things in communities. The whole system is a failure in the way it's working. You know, you go in some of the cases, I'll give you some of the cases here. And, you know, I had a little 3-year-old girl. This is one that really got to me because the little girl come up, she's got this twisted, distorted little body. She's only 3 to 4 years old, and she's up on her tippy toes, and the mother says, can you help me? I look at the child and I think, I have no idea what's going on here. So I just said to the mother, look, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Get on the table. She hops on the table. I surrogate the little girl into the mother. I work on the little girl. I surrogate her back. 2 days later, the mother rings me and said, look, the special school has noticed changes. I've noticed changes. Osteopath's noticed changes. Can I get another session before we leave New Zealand? So what happened was my spirit instantly said, bring in the father. So I just said, bring in the father. I didn't know why. When the father came, I surrogated the father, and I'm looking down the genetic line now of the soul. Why did the vehicle have to come to couldn't communicate? It went back to the father's great-great-grandfather, tuberculosis. So we cleared the dimension, changed it for the future. Now, spirit, why did you have to come to a body that couldn't communicate? 20-year-old female, thank you. What's happened? I just stabbed my grandfather in the throat. Thank you, what for? Because he raped me, sexually abused me, and I could stop it. Thank you. That tells me about the spirit of the grandfather in here, and he can't talk. That's why she can't talk. I had to bring him up, send him back in time, change what he did, send her back, change what she did, release the spirit of the grandfather, put her back in the body. 2 days later, she's eating and speaking for the first time. They'd feed her through tubes, they used to. 6 to 9 months later, I went back to New Zealand. The little girl come in. Her body is back to normal. It's not distorted or twisted up anymore. It must have been the spirit of the grandfather that was distorted and twisted that was in her and living the traits through her until we cleared the dimension. Yeah, we are multidimensional beings, and we have to understand the dimensions. Only then are we going to get balance in this world. You know, I see people out there today, and I see what they're doing to the planet. Hey, she's a living entity. She's a living entity. She's the mother. She's given birth to you. Without her, you're not going to have a planet. And, of course, the father, when he gets a little bit upset, he's the son. He can do a lot of things too. And when you start to communicate to these two, there's a lot of things you can do in the physical world of reality. You've just got to understand. Everything's a fractal to the hologram. We are holograms but the sun is one fractal to the next hologram up. Think about it. There's so much we can do to make changes in our world. This is our dimension. Anything that invades our dimension violates the law by coming out of dimension and is governed by the laws of our dimension. We can deal with anything that comes in. Anything that invades your field, we can deal with it because it's invaded your field. All we need is your permission to take control of the field, and then we can deal with what comes through. And believe me, I have seen things shape-shifting out of human bodies that, we have students when they come to learn, and sometimes you see them jump back 10 feet. Oh my God, what's that? Because some of the stuff from other dimensions starts shape-shifting into human bodies and coming through. But we can clear it.
What are some of the most interesting, specifically, what are some of the forms that you've seen come through?
Well, the interesting thing is when you get a lot of reptilian stuff and draconian stuff coming through, the actual whole mouth will change shape. It'll morph. And the teeth will all twist up. I mean, you wouldn't believe it's the same mouth. These things will start to morph through. Some of the big boys that are coming through now, through the ice, half animal, half human. They'll be growling. They're very powerful. This is why your police are trained, headshot, heart shots, because if you wound these things, they just keep coming at you. And they're 10 to 20 times more powerful than a human. And they're coming through. I believe if CERN opens this wormhole on the 14th, we're hoping something gets done to stop it. But if it opens the wormhole on the 14th, then I really believe there's going to be some mass stuff coming through.
Someone somewhere, Steve, obviously on some level knows that this is the shadow side of CERN, that it's working on this wormhole stuff to tear holes in the fabric of space-time and let things in. When meanwhile, 99% of the world thinks, we're just smashing particles together to see what comes out.
Well, they're saying they're looking for the God particle. They want to play God.
Yeah, we have a nasty tendency to do that in our culture, don't we, Steve?
Some people.
So some people, yeah, exactly. So I'm wondering, we have quite a complicated situation here with the various kinds of entities. There's this whole panoply of different intelligences that are manipulating us and so forth. But you've made a couple of mentions of the draconians, these reptilian entities. Are they, in terms of, I get the impression there's an organized sort of structure to what they're doing. There's an agenda there.
There is. But the hierarchy behind those are the winged serpents. They're the hierarchy. They stay behind the scene most of the time. The draconians do the dirty work for them. Well, I mean, they do the control work because they're put in a position of control and a hierarchy structure also, and they're programmed. When you're doing some of the stuff in the bases, well, of course, they're also then linked with the Greys and the governments that are working with, some of the experiments in the underground bases that are going on. For manipulation, look, I believe there are many species walking around amongst. I mean, I've had hybrids on the table. I've had half alien, half human hybrids on the table in the past.
Yep. Yeah.
Nothing surprised me. I mean, I had a beauty in America. So not America, in England. She came in from Europe with a partner. And the moment they walked in, I looked straight at them and I thought, hello, they're not from here. So sure enough, I get the guy on the table working with him. He's not from here. He's from somewhere else. And I didn't, I look at it and I thought, they don't seem suited. She seems quite a normal looking woman. Anyway, I started working on her and I got to access stuff. Next minute, okay, up you come. Next minute, her tongue came out. I'm looking over 6 inches long, like a lizard. Wow. You should see it moving around. It was unbelievable. I wish I had a camera. One of many of the things I would have loved to have shot. I mean, we do have one we've videoed, and this guy has this reptilian thing. It's like a snake in him, takes over, and it's thrashing around the table. And we have this being. We are glad we have this being, and we'll stay in control of this being. And I said, so you think? So we took them out. Look, there are so many different beings out there that can invade human bodies. We're just a vessel. This is a vehicle. Some people have got little mini buses out there full of hitchhikers. They're driving around in. And they get them in through the drugs, through all the different drugs. Now, so many people, they think, oh, it's harmless to take these drugs. Hey, you create an altered reality. You're entering someone else's reality. That gives them the rights to enter your reality. Thank you. That's the equal exchange of universe. I call it, The equal exchange where you enter their dimension, they enter your dimension. It's a balance. It's a balance. Keep the doors closed. We're meant to be in this dimension. We're not meant to be out there in these other dimensions. That's their dimension. We enter their dimension, they're going to come through into ours. And that's why mental health. God, I look at mental health and I realise, it's from our perspective and understanding, we look at mental health and we think it's a joke. Yep. They have no idea whatsoever what's really going on. No. The drugs to dumb and numb, and that makes you worse because it's dumbed you. Now you've got no defences. Your defences are totally down, so other things are going to move in.
Yeah, any approach to that based on the reductionist materialist model of reality is always going to be inadequate, but it's woefully inadequate. It's probably doing much more harm than good, as you're pointing out. And like you said, I've studied energy psychology and different modalities and so on, and you see how incredibly effective and potent some of this stuff can be, and it's just so cost effective and cheap and affordable, and yet, like you said, throwing millions of dollars at stuff that doesn't work.
Let's just look at the word psychology and psychiatry. The word psych is study of the soul. Yes. We're not interested in the soul. You study all you like. They're your experiences. We're working with the spirit of the being, which is the life force essence of the being, which is totally different. It can rearrange the universe. It can rearrange and morph the body at times. It can change things because the spirit's the essence of the being. And when you work with the essence of the being, it knows how, where, when, and why anything on the time track was ever created, no matter how far back in time. We've taken people back 1 million years. 17 people I had went back 1 million years before the collision. Some were aboard UFOs waiting and watching. Others were stuck on the planet, screaming hysterically as the moon bounced off the earth. Thank you very much. Wiped out all the dinosaurs. Thank you very much. They were still stuck in their trauma over 1 million years later till we cleared the trauma. When they look down their hands and feet, what do they see? Oh, my God, webbed fingers, webbed toes, reptilian appearance. It was a reptilian world. But the billiard ball effect took place. It got knocked out of orbit, set in a new time-space location where new molecular mortal beings were created. I look out there at every planet. We look at planets through this visible light of our eyes, visible light spectrum. But every planet's a different dimension from the sun. It's a different location, different speed of light, multiplied by the distance, different time, space, location. I believe every planet has life on it in its own dimension. If you go out and look out in the stars through the observatories, you see all these galaxies. But if you go in the infrared spectrum, you see all these galaxies you don't see with the naked eye because you move to another dimension. Therefore, every planet, as far as I'm concerned, has life on it. And that's where we get the extraterrestrials, the extra-dimensionals, and the interdimensionals. There's 3 lots. And the interdimensionals are the ones that we're concerned with that are invading human bodies. They're violating law.
Hence the interdimensional. So
what were the 3?
The extra-dimensionals are benign then?
The extra-dimensionals are coming into our dimension from other dimensions.
Sure.
The extraterrestrials are within our galaxy system and coming in to our dimension from other parts of our galaxy system.
Yeah.
But when they're coming through dimensions, they're coming through other dimensions into our dimension, the external part of our world, and manipulating the external part. We're worried about the internal world, the individual being. They're the ones we're dealing with. I mean, we do at times deal with some of the others too, but it's another story.
Have you, in your years of research, did you end up reading Robert Monroe's books?
I stayed away from most books, and the reason being is I didn't want to be influenced by anybody else's reality.
Sure.
All I wanted to do was, as Aboriginal culture was in the past, I wanted to listen to spirit and ask. Every time I'd get stuck, I'd say, I don't understand. What are you trying to show me? And it would show me the keys to the next dimension, to the next area. And this is all my life. We've done this 40-odd years. Every time we're stuck, we go to another level of it and it shows us another piece. Every time I teach, it's give me another key. It's been continuous for 40-odd years, well, over 40 years now. But there's so many areas. Look, I'll just go to some of the types of areas we're getting into here. And here's a woman who comes to me. She's in her 60s, 70s, and she breaks down crying her eyes out. She's so afraid. She's so afraid. What is it you're afraid of? I'm afraid I might hurt my grandchildren. Why is that? When my children were 3 months old, every time I went past the fireplace, I had the urge to throw them into the fire. Wow. Now my grandchildren here, I'm petrified I might do the same thing. Okay, bit of an issue there. Get on the table. So I get her on. We go straight back in time. She's back in a past life. They've burned her to the stake. But before they burned her to the stake, she's a single mother. Because she's a single mother, burned her to the stake. They strapped a 3-month-old child to her chest, and all she can think of last memory was throwing the fire so I wouldn't suffer. That last memory is still locked in line. She brings us through time, and she's petrified because it's still active till we unfolded time and space and cleared the dimension, and straight away that clears that particular issue online. You know, we can go into, you know, I've got a fire rescue officer. He says to me, all right, I've been drained of energy for 6 to 8 years. Why is that? I said, get on the table. We go and we access. 26, thank you. What happened? I'm a fire rescue officer. Thank you. What happened? I'm at a rescue scene. Thank you. What happened? I'm dragging the body of a young 17, 18-year-old boy out of the car. Thank you. How does it make you feel? I feel really sad because he reminds me of my young brother at the same age. He feels sad. His defences are down. Thank you. And how does it make you feel? Next man screaming out of his body, no, I'm only 18. I'm only 18. I'm too young to die. It was the spirit of a young 18-year-old boy that jumped in. I've worked with police officers that have attended 8 suicides in 2 weeks. 3 of them changed their mind. She felt sorry and then jumped into her. I'd have been up and taken them out. Now she's back in the workforce again. You've got police officers, you've got firemen, you've got ambulance people on trauma leave. They're not getting cleared because the system doesn't acknowledge the multi-dimensions. And we can keep going on. You know, the system, to me, I look at it because of where we're at. You know, we're 40 years ahead of them in what we're doing in our research. And we look at that as still being in the dark age where we are today. You've got to make change. You've got to understand we are multi-dimensional beings in a multi-dimensional world. The old cultures around the world, the old cultures had a lot of knowledge. And we really have to look at those old cultures. Even the old Indian cultures there. They had cultures, the Indian. You know, you go up into Canada, and we had the Aboriginals from Canada. We've had issues with people from the past that had trauma come through as Aborigines in Canada. You know, you've got the Inuits around the world. Many different cultures, they knew the old ways. But they were virtually destroyed and their knowledge was destroyed. We've got to go back to the old knowledge. We've got to understand this old knowledge because it is the ancient knowledge that really is going to bring balance into this world.
It seems quite clear to me, though, that the process of destroying these old cultures was deliberate, and the goal was to remove that knowledge specifically so that we could be harvested. So, you know, that system's not going to voluntarily let it back in, is it?
I understand that, and in Australia we had the stolen generation, and the key to that was if you take the children away from the mother, you're going to traumatise the spirit of the child, you're going to traumatise the spirit of the mother, and you're going to traumatise the spirit of the community. The moment the body's traumatised, the spirit's traumatised, that gives these other beings access to the soul. Now they keep them in a traumatised state. You know, here in Australia last year, 3,000 Aboriginal children were taken away from their parents. I've heard of cases where they've been in hospital, they've come in, taken them off the breasts of the mother and said, you used to be on drugs. They've just taken the children and the mothers have committed suicide. They're not doing the white society. They're only doing the Aboriginal society still. It's still a form of genocide going on in the present day.
Yep, still happening. We know. Yep.
And the suicide rates of young children, young Aboriginal children, are just going out of control at the moment as well.
I had a woman contact me the other day from a community, and she said, over 70 people in my community I know. She said, every uncle, every nephew, every cousin, every son, every daughter, every child, every relationship I've got is on ice. That's one community. Wow. You know, they wanted to get a team down there. We're organising to try and get a team down to do some work in that community. This is across Australia. This is happening. It's not just Australia, it's happening across the world. You know, this is a big entity that's coming through. He's a new powerful one coming through. And you've got to understand how to deal with these fellas. If you don't know how to deal with him, you know, I saw an article in the newspaper the other day and the police are saying, We don't know what's happening. It takes 10 of us to hold them down sometimes. Sure, because you're dealing with a force that's in a human body.
Yeah.
It's not human. You've got to see how to deal with it. One person that knows how to do it with that particular entity, once they know how to apply the laws, you see.
Mm. Does it seem to be the same entities attacking the same sorts of, so people who are on ice, is it the same entity that comes into all those kind of people? Like, is it the same?
Yeah, it's like the ice.
You know what I'm saying?
It's like the ice opens up a wormhole to a specific dimension. And within that dimension of these particular people coming through, but these from the look, I'm going back and I'm saying, hey, hang on. 2005, CERN started playing around with these wormholes. This is about the same time these big booms are starting to come through. Go back after they start playing. How many weird animals are getting washed up on the beaches around the world that we've never seen before? Where'd they come from?
Yeah.
Are they coming through the wormholes that they're opening up from other dimensions? You know, we've got to really look at the reality of what's going on out there. If you create a wormhole, a physical wormhole in our sky, then what's coming through that wormhole? What do you open the wormhole to? Russia did a thing the other day. We got an article from Russia, and Russia is actually telling its soldiers in Russia, China, and some of its other allies, they say, prepare yourself and prepare your military. The demigods are here.
Wow.
That's their report. So what else is coming through? You know, we're interested in times.
Yeah.
Are we getting good things coming through as well, or are they all bad?
Watch this. If you're a smart, intelligent being of a higher level and you understood the laws of the universe, who you enters the game of another subject, the laws of the game, would you come down into this game and get stuck here? No, you wouldn't. Okay? Now, if you're an intelligent being on another dimension, you realise one thing. You cannot interfere with the progression of a species. Every time we interfere with the progression of a species, what do? We end up wiping out the species. Everything must evolve at its own pace. They know that. Yes, they're outside observing the game, good and proper, but they're not going to come into the game. The ones that come into the game got their own agenda. Your body. They want the vehicle. Thank you for the future. They've got their own agenda.
I wanted to ask Steve, obviously you're aware of the secret societies and all this sort of stuff that goes on, the rituals, the satanic rituals and sacrifices and all this sort of stuff. Specifically, what kind of entities are these people appealing to most of the time?
These are usually the draconians and the winged serpents. These are the hierarchy of the winged serpent. They've been around for thousands of years. They've been manipulating our world for thousands of years. And the reptilians, the draconians themselves, are the ones that are manipulating through these rituals. I've dealt with many, many clients over the years that have been sexually sacrificed in some of these rituals as children, and we've cleared some of the dimensions. Most of the time we found that their parents, the father in particular, was high up in that level. Their body's taken over. Remember, if you enter the game of another, you're going to be subject to laws of that game. You enter their game, they can morph at these rituals, and you're in their game. You will be petrified because you're in their game. You've got to understand how to control the game and not you enter their game, but trap them into your game. And that's a different story. That's what we teach the students, how to take control of the game and not enter the game of others. You know, every time you enter any ritual whatsoever, you are entering someone else's game. Who runs the game? Who set up the game? Who's manipulating you in the game? See, for thousands of years, our world has been manipulated by another dimension. They can see into our dimension, but when we came into this physical vehicle, it had been genetically engineered into amnesia. Our spirit entered the vehicle and forgot who it was. Thank you very much. Because at the molecular mortal being, you've got the molecular mortal choices of the free will, the ego. So therefore, it's learning the experiences, slowly evolving with these experiences, but trying to run the show all the time. Meanwhile, the poor old spirit's getting pushed in the background. It's time we start to listen.
Yeah. Look, I'm glad you mentioned that, actually, the genetic interference, because I'm quite clear. I would say I'm getting clearer and clearer as time goes by that the state of the human, if you like, the collective human ego consciousness is not a natural stage in uninterfered with evolution. It's a mutant state that has been deliberately engineered, as far as I can tell. And I don't know what the time frame on that is. As far as I know, it could be 10,000 years or it could be 400,000 years. I haven't pinpointed that, but it seems that it's quite obvious to me that it's deliberately engineered and it's not a natural state of being to pass through even.
If you go back to the Sumerian text and you start to study some of the Sumerian texts and some of the old, religious texts and books, you'll find some of the old records of the past. And some of those records of the past, they talk of the gods Anu and Lil and Ea. They talk of the Sumerian text, talks of the Nephilim being handed the joints. I look at all the skeleton of joints they're digging up at present around the world. I've got heaps of photos. Some of them are 100 foot tall. Monstrous.
Yeah.
Well, they were here, but if you go in the biblical part, it says after 144,000 years they uprised and went back to where they came. Well, it's interesting they use that number because what it tells me is after 1 to the square to the cube, the square is the invisible world, the cube's the visible world of the 3 dimensions, past, present, and future. Conjunction takes place, they went back to where they came. And the key to soul's been saved 144,000. 1 to the square to the cube. At the end of the 3 dimensions, we're in the conjunction now. Started in 2013, finished in 2023. We're in the midst of it. It's a 10-year period. We're in the midst.
Wow.
We're in a very important time over the next 10 years. We're going to see some very interesting things take place. But it's all based on maths and geometry. You go in, and when you understand law, you look at religion, and you can see science and religion, and you can see the link because the keys are all there in the maths and geometry of it all. But religion has twisted it because the draconians that run religion have twisted it. They've got their own agenda going. Keep them in the dark.
I have an interesting. Absolutely. I just want to say, a question. There's an issue that I've had for a while with the dichotomy between a physical presence in this physical 3D reality versus the interdimensional presence, and these reptilian entities seem to have both sides of the spectrum covered. They seem to have a physical. There's physical bases and underground tunnels, all this sort of stuff going on, and then there's the interdimensional presence as well. And I'm wondering if you might be able to comment on that.
Yeah, well, you got to separate them for a start. Now, what you're calling these entities, they're not entities. The ones in the bases, you're dealing with the greys, you're dealing with draconians, you're dealing with reptilians, you're doing beings that are physical in the physical reality here, which are breeding here physically in this world. Physical world. Entities are different to a draconian, to a winged serpent, to a gargoyle. Entities different to a spirit. An entity is an entity who's created by a thought that's evolved through time with enough intelligence to learn about you. He's become a life form of his own, and now he's evolving. He's trying to manipulate the vehicle that he's in. That's the entity. Yep. The spirit is the essence of the being in the vehicle, but if the vehicle dies, then it can jump into whoever killed it, into that vehicle and share that vehicle with it. Now, many cultures understand this. I saw an episode where I saw a general in Syria recently rip the heart out of somebody and ate the heart. That's capturing the spirit. This used to be done old cultures in the wars. They eat their victims to give them more strength because it captures the spirit within it.
Wow.
You've got to see the multi-dimensions of our world. And the sacrifices. Why do they sacrifice people and rip out the hearts? What do they do with the hearts? Again, these beings that are running the body capture the spirit. There's a lot more going on. You've got to understand the metaphysics of our world. First is the invisible world, then it's the visible world. If you change the invisible, it'll change the visible. Our systems work in reverse. It's trying to change the visible without understanding the invisible.
And denying that it even exists.
That's it. And they lock people up when they talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a meeting with one of the Premier's departments and they brought in all these psychiatrists. I think they'd assess me, you see. Anyway, by the time we're finished, they're all coming up and saying, we've seen what you're talking about. We've seen what you're talking about. How did you get them to talk? And I said, come and do the course.
And put your drugs away.
Yeah, that's it. You've got to understand what you're dealing with. And it's, it's dangerous. If you don't know what you're doing. In my early days, I was actually picked up and thrown 30 feet through the air by an invisible force. I landed on the lounge. I said, okay, I'll get the hint. I'll wait. was fascinating. Free flight through space. But what took place? It took me 20 years to realise what had taken place. I entered its game and it just threw me out of the game. You got to understand who controls the game. I had another episode. Very rarely do I ever get attacked by anything. Come to my game, get dealt with good and proper. But I had an interesting episode which took me to another level. I had a client come in with his mother. He's 26 and he's sliced both his wrists. I walked up to work one and bang, I got a massive psychic hit. I went out, drink of water, said to the big boy, come back in, bang, second psychic hit, drink of water. I say, okay, what's going on? And I just listened. My spirit said, he made an agreement with the entity to take him out. You have to enter the entity's game to get to him. Well, hang on. This is my house, my rules, my game, you're coming out. So I went back in, new thought process, and took him out. You know, but that's how subtle it is. That's how subtle. He made an agreement with the entity. His mother bought him. He didn't make an agreement to come. So the first law is intent and the second law is law of agreement. You understand how to apply these laws, you see?
Fascinating.
When
Very
someone
subtle,
comes
very
to
powerful.
see you, do they need to come multiple times usually, or is it
Once.
just sort of like one and
Most
that's
of
it?
the time it's once. Look, when a person comes to me, what is it that's affecting you? All I need to know is what's affecting you to find the dimension we're dealing with. Your spirit knows how, where, when, and why. Once we send it back to that dimension and it's reliving it, we loop time, put you outside time, and that issue gone, and you're on a new time track. You may have other issues that may be looked at down the track. But my thing, let the sleeping giant sleep. Let's not wake them.
Yeah.
By themselves, then we'll deal with them. You see? There's many, as I said, there's many different cases, and look, we can go down and mention hundreds of cases. We've got so many lists. We've got people that have attempted, self-harm. I've got a woman and she's stabbed all over. We go back to a past life. She's in India. Thank you. What happened? I've just given birth to a little girl. Thank you. What's happened? Little girls are useless. Thank you. What happened? My husband's annoyed. Thank you. What happened? He's bowed me hand and feet and he's stabbing me to death. Thank you. I accept I did the wrong thing by giving birth to a girl and not a boy. And I can't forgive myself for not saving my daughter because I know he's going to kill her too. She's still stuck in time, stabbing herself because she didn't save the daughter. The moment we changed the dimension, the self-mutilation stopped. I had an Aboriginal man. The Aboriginal man, he hit drugs. We got to find out why he hit the drugs. He went back to his sweet little old 80-year-old grandmother. He idolised her. She reverts back to the age of 8 and she's reliving being whipped constantly at school for speaking native language. English was the only language. He felt totally useless. He could do nothing to assist. That triggered off the sleeper. I took him into his sleeper in his past life, hunting and fishing. White people arrive in boats and start shooting them like rabbits. By the time he came out of hiding, his whole family had been shot dead and he felt useless. When the trigger was triggered, hit the drugs to mask what was taking place. You see, 100 years ago here in Australia, you go and you get an Aboriginal hunting licence and you go for a quota for the weekend, like shooting rabbits. They wiped off all the Aborigines in Tasmania, and today they're still doing genocide in what they're doing with the Aboriginal kids. That's because, the land they've got is worth money. Big mining companies want the land.
And because their spiritual connection is so powerful, I believe.
It is. It was. I say it is. It was. It was.
Steve, we had it. Sorry, go ahead, mate.
When you take away the knowledge that's passed from father to son over a lifetime and you steal the generations, the knowledge is no longer passed on and it's lost. And then you reprogram them into Christianity. You go into community, they say, we was evil before Jesus came. I said, no, you weren't. You knew law, you didn't violate law. You never had the problem we had today. But since the intervention of white society, the Aboriginal, you got 87% Aboriginal people in the prison system.
Yeah.
That's how high it is. You totally destroyed a culture that was a beautiful culture.
It's clear that there's bigger things at play here, isn't there?
Of course. It's the knowledge that they had because they do come from. And when I work with some of the Aboriginal people, oh my God, so fast. I had a girl come to me. The little girl, she's on drugs. I was set up a 10 embassy in Canberra there, and she come up, "Can you help me? Can you help me?" I said, "Look at my eyes." I locked onto a spirit, hit her on the shoulder. I said, "Spirit, send her the cause effect of why she is the way she is." Next minute, she's curled up on the ground, little fetal position. So, "Little spirit, how old are you?" "I'm 2 months inside my mummy's tummy." "Thank you, little spirit." "And what's happened?" "Daddy punched mummy in the tummy. Daddy punched mummy in the tummy." "How to make you feel, little spirit?" "They don't want me." That's why she's on drugs. I changed the demand, put her outside time, hit the drugs 180 degrees, blew them out of the system. She's right. That's how fast we can make changes.
It does. It's not a matter. It's a completely different headspace. You know, where we've been so conditioned into, you got to chip away at it, you plug away at it. It's hard work, you know, blood, sweat, and tears. But no, it doesn't have to be this way.
The universe is very simple. We're just forgotten.
Yeah.
The moment you start to work with it, I tell you, it's brilliant. It's brilliant what it can do. You know, more people need to start to align themselves to understand how this universe really works. And that's what they're petrified. They're petrified we'll wake up. And we're starting to wake up. It's like everyone in the airwaves right now, everyone has airwaves. Allow your spirit to awaken from amnesia. And all of a sudden start to remember. And as you do, watch the change that will take place from this moment on in your life. It'll happen.
What happens if you have someone on the table whose spirit is so asleep and they've been so conditioned, so programmed?
Your spirit's never asleep.
Yes.
Your spirit is there and it's always aware and always awake. It's the ego sometimes wants to control the show.
Yeah.
And wants to take over. There's 4 parts talking. People don't realise it. When you're on the table, I've got the ego talking, I've got the soul talking, I've got the spirit talking, I've got life forms talking, trying to justify their existence. You've got to know who's talking. And you know, once you understand who's talking, I'm not interested in the soul, I'm not interested in the ego, I'm not interested in life forms, I'll take them out. I'm interested in the spirit, only the spirit, because it knows truth, only truth. It will never lie. It will tell you just exactly how it is. That's it. That's the beauty of it.
I love it.
We have a question from a viewer, and they've asked, how do we get the spirit to play our game?
We don't need the spirit to play our game. You know, the spirit's already there. All we need to do is acknowledge it and tell it what we want. It's there for us. Really,
I think they're referring to an entity. Sorry, yes. Maybe? How do we get an entity to play our game?
Well, all you got to do is 1, take your drugs. 2, get drunk. 3, call in. 4, a young child. I don't want to be here. That's an invitation for something it does. I wish I was dead. That's an invitation for something that wants to live. I wish I had a friend. That's an invitation for the friend. First thing, invisible. Any trauma at all can let them in. You feel sorry for somebody, you can take on things from another person. There's a whole range of things that can let them in. Most of the time is they need your free will choice to open the doors. Nothing can get in unless you let it in. So set up some wonderful games out there. I mean, especially the New Age movement. The New Age movement, it's got so many entrapments in it, it's not funny. You know?
We were talking about that today.
Yeah, we've had that conversation today. Yeah, would you like to delineate a few for us?
Sorry?
Delineate a few of those New Age traps, because I think it's worth doing at this point in time.
As there is an equal opposite to all things in this universe, as you know, there's a night, there's day, there's left, there's right, there's high, there's low, there's forwards, there's backwards. There's an internal world to an external world. There's an external world to an internal world. The internal world or the external world is your spirit rearranging this universe for you, manifesting your reality. Most people ignore their spirit and go outside themselves, and they call in, whether it be the gods, whether it be the guides, whether it be the masters, whatever it is they're calling external to internal. Anything external to internal is going to come in and manipulate the soul. The spirit's the internal, the external. The soul is the external to the internal. Once the soul locked in, it's going to be reproducing itself to try and take over the host, which is you. And there's your difference. Internal to external or external to internal. Internal, external, spirit manifests reality. External to internal. You give them power to something else outside your reality that's going to try and manipulate and take over your vehicle.
Absolutely.
That's simple.
Basically, you know, any kind of spirits or angels or masters and all of that, it's just an invitation to invite someone into your game.
It's quite interesting when you start taking away, when you get a client on the table and they're back there reliving all these things, and spirit, I want you unmasked. and show the being its true form. Whoa, you should see some of the things. People screaming on the table that see what they think was an angel, this massive winged serpent standing there. Thank you very much. Massive, fellas, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to remember one thing. Look, it says the dragon and serpent of old is Satan and devil himself. The dragon comes from the word Draco. Draco ruled between 500 and 700 BC when death was dealt out the smallest of penalties. Now, if the dragon and serpent of old, Satan and devil himself, and Satan's a fallen angel, what do you got? You got a winged serpent. Thank you very much.
Run that by us again.
And I know I'm going to push a lot of buttons and a lot of people out there. But reality is reality. We're getting results nobody's getting because we understand reality. Most of the people with problems are stuck in someone else's reality. And they're being manipulated by someone else's reality. They've got to take back control of their reality, understand what's really going on, so they're making decisions. The spirit themselves are making their own decisions. And when I talk about the spirit, I'm not talking about some great spirit out there or any other spirit out there. I'm talking about your spirit, the essence of you. If the spirit of the tree was to depart, the tree would be dead. I can bring the spirit of a tree and have a tree physically talking out of you. People say, how can you do that? If you was a mini miner and say you was a semi-trailer and you hopped in the vehicle, pull up a set of lights, let's drag. The little mini gears off through the traffic, you're pulling the 40-ton load with the semi, pull up the next set of lights, let's swap drivers. Now, the drive wasn't the semis and the mini, off through the traffic. The tree, if I take the spirit of the tree and swap drivers and put the spirit of the tree in you, your vehicle's designed to talk to me in English. That tree can talk to me in English. The dog, the cat, any animal I want to surrogate him can talk to me in English out of your body. I just swap drivers.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
And when you understand nature, there are no more secrets. Everything in nature is seen. You'd be surprised what you can do and understand nature and how to communicate to it.
What are some of the things some of the, I don't know, the more important or pertinent or salient points that you've received from, say, trees or, the spirits in nature?
We were doing a big expo one day, and this was an expo in Aboriginal community. And what happened was there were a couple of things here this community took place. I'll get back to the other thing in a minute, but with the tree. And there's a great big old oak tree, beautiful big oak tree. I'm like it must have been at least 25 feet round at the base. And I'm thinking, boy, I bet that tree's seen a lot in its time. So I got one of my students on the table and I saw I got the tree in. And I said to the tree, have you seen anything detrimental in the last 150 years? It said yes. I said, what? 80 years ago, 3 men came riding through on horses and started shooting Aborigines indiscriminately. Never. I've never seen anything like this in my life. Never seen anything like this in my life. This is what the tree's saying, the body, So it's traumatized by it. So we blew and we changed the dimension. And I said to the tree, anything else that's upset you? It said, yes, when they put the bolts in me. So I just go back and change and blew it. Then we're outside looking around the tree. And I say, well, where in the hell are these bolts talking about? And then one of the students said, hey, look up there. And he's 50 feet up the tree. It's a great big branch. And every 18 inches were 6-inch bolts in the branch of the tree.
Wow.
Which we didn't know the tree told us. We've done animals that have been traumatized. I've worked on greyhounds. It's funny. I mean, one greyhound I worked on one day, it stopped running. So the owner brought the greyhound to me, so I got the greyhound in. And what the greyhound said was, they threw a possum in with me. It had scratches all over its face, you see. They said, they threw a possum in with me and they wanted me to kill the possum. I didn't want to kill the possum. And the possum was scared and it scratched me all over the face. I'm not going to run and that's it. And it just refused to run.
Wow.
On the greyhound.
Good on him.
I mean, it's fascinating when you bring an animal in because the animal's totally different talking out of a human as a tree is different, as a human is different. But all you're doing is swapping drivers. It's just fascinating. You can find so much in nature with people. With people, there are so many areas that we're looking at that people have brought stuff through from the past. I've got I won't show killing photography on here, won't show it, but, I've got a woman that's got neck problems. And we look at this one example, neck problem psoriasis. So I go look at neck problem, and it goes back to a past life, You're there now, what's happening? Oh, I'm a cocky little thing, she says. I'm leaning against a tree and they're hanging me arm. And I said, why the hanging you arm? I didn't like her, I set her up. Whoa. And she's got neck problems? Don't tell me, I'll tell you. Let's go on the table. I call up the aunt. And she's going through the hanging on the table, last memory of death. The aunt's in her still. I bring the aunt and fold the time and space, release the aunt, change time. The neck problem clears up. You know, we're doing, look, it's endless the amount of, I've worked on thousands, tens of thousands of people. And my students are working on people all the time. And some of the stories, I used to write a lot of them down, but nowadays, you know, another day at the office.
What do we need to do to get this out there even further?
We're actually going over into America, and whereabouts are you based?
We're in Sydney.
You're in Sydney. Okay. What happens is we've just been teaching. I'm in the middle of teaching now up here in Brisbane. We will be teaching in Sydney. We're teaching in Melbourne. We're teaching Byron Bay next month. April, Byron Bay. I'll have one of my top students teaching there while I'm overseas teaching. I'll be overseas teaching in New York, San Francisco, up in Canada, and down in Texas. And I'll be coming back again and then working out and onto Europe and, you know, Ireland and UK. I mean, my thing is I want 50 countries to understand how to turn their past issues around and how to deal with this for the future. The more people we have, the more we clear, the more we change reality.
Absolutely.
This business is untangling time.
If people ever go to the website, they usually see where I'm going to be beforehand, but if they contact me, they'll put them in the list like the Sydney list or the Adelaide list or the Perth list or wherever it is. www.holographickinetics.com and future seminars. But the web pages, you go and the contact details are in there. And just contact us and I'll put you on the list. And when we're doing Sydney next or Melbourne next, we'll send emails and let people know, and we'll do that there. But as I said, there's so many areas that we are getting to, not just, and this is the difference, with the spirits, with the entities, with the winged serpent, with the big boys, we're not looking for them. We're looking for the dimension that allowed them in, because everything is created in its own dimension of time. Once we find the dimension, now we can find out what came into that dimension and what's been manipulating that dimension. Then we're going to unfold time and space and dimension, change the dimension so it can't come in the future, because what's happening now has happened before, deja vu. What's happening now will happen in the future. We're discovering now time loops. Fascinating to the degree. They're capturing them now on CTV cameras around the world of time loops. Now, in the reality world, I've got a woman who comes to me. She comes to me and she goes through a set of lights, looks up, there's a semi-trailer heading at her. That's all she remembers. She gets home at 3 o'clock in the morning. Husband's pacing back and forth. He's ropeable. She was due home at 11 o'clock. 4 hours of missing time. So she comes to me and says, I must have been abducted. Let's see, get on the table. We get on the table, we go straight back, and it takes her back into deja vu, the last parallel. Set of lights, bang, the semi hits her. It took 4 hours for her to die. This time it repeats itself. Got the set of lights, instant recall, and she let go. Time instantly looped itself and put her outside 4 hours. I looked at that and said, oh my God, it makes a lot of sense. Because I should be dead at least 4 times. And I'll just go on the last one. The last one, I'm broadsiding down the road on a motorcycle about to go into a Volkswagen. And I remember saying, oh, well, here come a couple of broken legs. And the moment I acknowledged that, something went zap and put me in front of the car. Impossible to do. Instant time loops. I've spoken to people that said I should be dead. What happened? And I'm finding time loops. The moment you acknowledge something, time will instantly loop itself and put you outside time. Watch this. If I take you back to something you did that set you up in this lifetime, and the moment you acknowledge it, time will loop itself, put you outside time, and that no longer affects you. This is just another step in the physical world of reality.
So essentially, are you saying that acceptance and forgiveness are ways of getting outside these time loops?
The moment you acknowledge what you did, that acknowledgement of not wanting it again will loop time and put you outside time. Yes. So look, there's so many areas we're getting to. This is it is the future. I mean, it's got to be. There's so many areas that we're getting. Why do you think old people before they die revert back in time? It's a universe.
Yeah.
Deal with the stuff now, so you don't have to come back.
Yeah.
The universe brings up for you to deal with it, but no one's helping them to deal with it.
No.
They're doing everything they can to have them not deal with anything right now.
Yeah.
And you've got to understand who's really running the game. And what's the agenda of the game? And that's when you start to look at that, then you start to understand why things are going the way they are, why people aren't getting better. You know, people are giving their power away. You know, you think the doctor's got the answer to it? Hey, come on. He goes on the computer nowadays and he reads what comes up on the computer. And there's your doctors for you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Our whole civilization is designed to get people externalized and looking for an external authority. You know, like you're saying about the New Age movement, you know, it's the same thing. It's a mirror of that. Look outside, find the intercessory, find someone to save you. Government will tell you what to do. They'll keep you safe, reassure you, all this sort of thing. I must...
Disempowering, it's called.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
Is that what you see play out? I mean, every time I see or hear a politician speak, basically, especially the Prime Minister, that's exactly what I see the same thing over and over again. I'm wondering what your take is on the whole political system. Do you have anything extra that you would add to that, what we've said so far, what we've noted?
Yeah, I call them the buck-passing parties. Because they're forever passing the buck. They don't want to make a change with anything because they're being dictated to from above. They're not making the decisions themselves.
No.
Therefore, don't want anything to change. You know, every now and then you might get somebody who wants to change, but then they're only a small pea in a great big pot.
Mm-hmm.
And the system that they're a part of won't allow that to happen anyway. So
and that's why I often hear the government say we'll be forced to implement draconian laws.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the Draco Sentencium. Harsh laws. You know, the metaphysics of everything out there that's been taking place. And when you do, you start to really understand what is really going on. You know, these men at these high levels that have gone into the secret societies that are ruling, they're given positions of power, money, prestige. What they don't realise, they've sold their soul. They're trapped in the game of the future, like it or not. They're back here. That's it. They're tools. They just don't realise what they've actually done for their spirit. They can't be free while they're trapped in the game of another. And that game they're trapped in can be for eternity until we unfold time and space on those dimensions and change the dimensions back at their junction where they were created. Then we can try and put you outside time and make changes. Therefore, you don't have to be in the game anymore.
It's
that's
But
so
yeah.
helpful to me to understand the secret societies, that they're going into their game.
Oh, yes.
Because
And
some
this-
of the stuff that goes on there, I mean, as a human being, you wonder how physically it's possible that people can do that, but it's because
When they
they're
go
not
into
really.
the game and they're taken over,
Yeah.
they're not their thoughts. As they get their way up and they get taken over at certain levels, their thoughts and actions aren't their thoughts and actions, but they will justify it because they believe they're their thoughts and actions.
Yeah.
The soul of man is so easy to manipulate. And when these beings are in the vehicle manipulating them, these beings aren't even running. When they get the high level, have a look. No one home, thank you very much.
Yep.
Not the body run the body. It's other things run the body.
It reminds me of what you just said then. It reminds me of listening to David Icke talk once, and he said he had an encounter in a room, like a makeup room or something, before going on a TV show. He was sitting next to the Ted Heath, and Ted Heath was on the chair next to him. They were looking at the mirror, right? And he turns to Ted, and he's like, "Oh, you know, how you going?" sort of thing. And Ted just turns to him, and his eyes are just black. His eyes are black, doesn't expression on his face. And just turns away again. That was it. And it was like, he was obviously possessed.
Yeah, look, when these beings take over a body, the body, you know, walking, talking, communicating, but really there's no life essence to the being anymore. The beings that take over, you know, there's no, I won't say the word, you know, sometimes we use the terminology, there's no soul to them, but I won't use the words no soul because the soul's the programming of the external experiences. But what takes place is that it's like the essence of the spirit isn't there. It's like it's so suppressed and these other things are taken over. And this is how, in that level, when they get up in the level, what can take place as they get to a higher level, the firstborn son becomes allocated to these beings. What's that mean? That means that when the spirit enters, a draconian enters as well, because he's got the born rights to the vehicle. Now he needs to traumatise the child. Once he traumatised the spirit of the baby, he gets to take over. If they can keep the child now traumatised through sexual abuse and other abuse, he now runs the vehicle. Now he's put in positions of power as he gets older. He's running the vehicle and the spirit totally suppressed in the back seat.
Mm-hmm.
How the game structure works.
Yeah.
So the younger they get them, the better.
Well, what happens the moment you traumatise the spirit at a young age, because they've got the born rights, that means they're sharing the vehicle. It's allocated before they're even born at that level. So they've got the born rights. So what then takes place is that these beings move into the body and they realise that they have to keep the spirit traumatised so they can now take over the soul and program the soul for themselves the way they want it. So the spirit becomes trapped in that vehicle in the back seat, you could say, while they're running the vehicle through time until we find them and take them out. He the spirit back control of his vehicle again.
I was just going to say, you know, on some level, the incoming human soul must be aware of this, surely.
No, the soul, remember the soul is only the experiences. When the soul is born, the mother and father, their mother and father, all the ancestors are in the fractals of the hologram of time. We can bring through the great-great-great-grandmother, come through the hologram of time, come forward. Now what took place? Next minute she is crying her eyes out of the body and talking to you there and then on the table through that body because the fractals the hologram. But what happens is every experience you lock in is part of the soul. The soul is only the experiences, and this is where psychiatry and psychology is study of the soul. They're studying new experiences. Well, we're not interested in new experiences. We're interested in the essence of the being and talk to it, find its trauma. And I'll give you another example about that, the difference. I've got a woman and she's a model. She's in Europe. She comes out to see me because no one can help her. And every morning she gets up and she's got mass anxiety. She gets up on the catwalk in front of thousands of people, no anxiety. But every morning she's got this anxiety, doesn't know why. So she comes out, we get her on the table, find the cause effect. Spirit said 16, go there now, what happened? I remember I had a friend come and stay and slept on the lounge room floor and I felt something happen. Thank you. All I remember is the soul. The soul remembers the experiences. Thank you, step aside. Spirit, come forward now. Spirit, what took place? He drugged the body and he raped me. He drugged the body and he raped me. I couldn't wake the body. The spirit was traumatised because the vehicle had been drugged and raped. The soul had no memories because it had been put to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
See the difference?
Yeah.
And the spirit had the trauma.
Yeah. Wow.
So when you traumatise the spirit, the soul can be manipulated also.
Okay. All right, I'm just processing that.
Yeah, me too. Hang on one moment. My brain is working.
As I said, my thing is I feel sorry for the soldiers that have put their time in. They've gone to defend a country, for these people of power that are playing games with them. And what happened was they've gone to defend the country. They come back and they're traumatised by events that have taken place, and yet nobody's clearing them. You know, I was asked by one of my students over in America, and they said, look, a guy's on trauma leave. Would you be prepared to do some work on him? I said, no problem. I said, if he's traumatising as a soldier, I said, get him in, we'll work on him for nothing. I get a phone call from the guy. He says, I went to the Veterans Association and told the veterans that you're out here and that you want to do some work on us, and they advised me not to have a session with you. They said there are a lot of charlatans out there. We're not charging, mind you. There are a lot of charlatans out there and not to have a session. Now, here's a guy who can have a free session to be clear on what's running him, but he goes and he asks for permission from the Veterans Association, and they say, we advise you not to. How controlled can you get?
Yeah,
remember, when you go to the military, what do? They break your spirit so they can control your soul.
Yeah.
Now you're a puppet in the game. Thank you very much.
Well, they have to do that, don't they?
We've got soldiers out here. We've got soldiers out here that are suffering mass trauma from the war. And again, we know the Veterans Association knows about this because I had a counsellor who we cleared his wife up. He has written letters after letters. He's gone to the meetings. Not one of them have they attempted to get any of our crew in to do any work on them, not once. The Veterans Association doesn't want to. If they did, they'd be doing the work. They're not interested. Thank you very much.
Mm.
They've already traumatised them, men. They've already got them. That's it. If they've traumatised them already, then they've already got them ready for the harvest. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So the veteran
game that has been played.
Yeah. We see. I see the metaphysics you're talking about, but I'm wondering about the, at the bureaucratic level, what's the investment that the VA has in maintaining their status quo and scaring people away from you?
Control. At the very top, the beings that are controlling at the very top level are dictating all the way down the line.
Yeah.
And the people that have been manipulating control at those high levels, passing on down the line to their people under them. The whole idea is that they really don't want these people cleared.
Mm.
And those at the very top level that are being run by these beings at the top in the secret societies that are running at the highest level, they do not want people cleared. They need the vehicles for the future.
Mm.
They've already traumatised them, so now let's harvest them. You've really got to look at the metaphysics of what is going on out there. If any politician was out there and was genuine and wanted to see changes, then they would be out there and they would be organising to make changes. They don't. It's only through word of mouth, when people are coming to us, through word of mouth, that we're clearing these men and we're getting results.
Well, you can see by the therapies that are approved for these sorts of things, the pharmaceuticals, the psychiatry, the psychology, all of that stuff. I mean, it's all connected to big pharma. It's all connected to money. That's all it is. They make a lot of money from people being on that stuff. Plus they get to harvest, at the end of it all. So,
the interesting thing is millions of your taxpayers' money went in to royal commissions, deaths in custody, rights of Indigenous in Australia, mental health in Australia. Millions and millions of dollars went into royal commissions and inquiries. And out of every inquiry, you know what the elders stated? We need to heal the spirit. Not once have they turned to want to heal the spirit. They put blocks up at every angle. I've been called high security prisons for people mentally insane, voice in the head. We've cleared the stuff out of there. Next day they're right. But we get blocks then from the psychiatrists that are running the prison system because they don't want to see change.
Yeah.
I mean, how embarrassing for somebody who comes in on a psychiatrist getting results.
They're indoctrinated. They're indoctrinated.
A huge amount of money that's been paid to these fellas within the drugs. They get paid so much for every drug they push. There's what they don't realise is law, L-O-R-E.
Mm-hmm.
If you're responsible by your actions or inactions of harming another in any form or any way, you must experience the cycles of time that upon yourself. You cannot escape it. These men are going to come back in the future to be victims of their own demise. They cannot escape it.
Mm.
You hear cases before. I've heard people say Aboriginals were revenge killing. No, they weren't. They're doing you a favour. If you killed someone, family would be given a spear. They'd throw a spear at you. If they got you, they got you. They didn't, they didn't. They killed you, they killed you. They didn't, they didn't. What they did is they knew through cycles of time that in 1,000 years' time from now, you'd have to come back to relive again. That would save you 1,000 years of being stuck in this game by dealing with in the now. They did you a favour. So you can't escape the cycles of time. These men in positions of power, they got no idea what they've set themselves up for the future.
I'm wondering, for some reason, I'm wondering about people who work in abattoirs and stuff like that.
That's
have you worked with any of that?
Sure. Most of the guys are the killers in the abattoirs end up in mental institutions. They take on all the spirits. I was in hospital. I had an operation in the hospital, and there were 5 people in the room had the same operation. But the guy in the bed beside me, he's screaming all night in pain and agony for painkillers. They come around, painkillers, no. Pumping painkillers in this guy. I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, oh, I can sense stuff in your field here. Well, this is interesting. So next morning I said, what do you do for a living? I'm a boner at the abattoirs. All the animal spirits were in him. They're making him live the pain and suffering they were going through.
Oh, wow.
You can't escape it,
Yeah.
And I just look at it and think, okay, I can feel what was going on here. And, you can't
That's
escape.
a lot of animals.
Oh, yeah. As I said, you go and do research, you find a lot of those guys up in mental institutions, you know. I mean, I actually, you talk about the soldiers, you know, I wrote to Obama when he first got in 2009. Now, I warned him what was going to happen with his soldiers. I'm talking about psychiatrists and psychologists in Iraq. That was 10 months before the major psychiatrist shot and killed, I think it was 17 men and wounded 37 others.
Wow, I didn't hear about that.
9 to 10 months. He was a major psychiatrist that killed them. They were war was happening. I know it's taking place. You know, this is why so many psychiatrists end up as patients too. They don't understand what they're dealing with, and they take on what's in the bodies of these beings. And it's going to get worse because the beings that are coming through now, American government's been trained to train its troops for what they call the pandemic of the future. And these are the big boys that are coming through. They're already here, but I mean, they're going to get worse.
Yeah. So, I mean, on one level, the situation seems to be getting worse, but a lot of us, you know, on the other hand, there's a flip side of it where we seem to be waking up at the same time. How do you see it playing out?
And the more you wake up, the more you start to realise that the key is not to give your power away, but the key is when you do. And I you know, I've seen all these people on all these different drugs, and you know, some of the new drugs that are coming through is the in thing. You know, ayahuasca in particular, it's the in thing to go and have ayahuasca. Okay, but what I'm finding is that the entity comes with ayahuasca. It actually shuts down the neurons between the consciousness and the spirit. It is also very big and powerful when we get him and bring him up. Very big, powerful entity that comes through. And yet, it's the end thing now. People are going out and they're having all the ayahuasca parties and they think it's a great thing and makes you spiritually enlightened. It's from self down the track, what's going to happen? You know, you open your door to any other dimension, you let anything into your body, you're doing it through your free will choice. And there's too many things out there that are just too happy to, you know, assist you to open the door and to come in. You know? They want to experience this dimension. It's the only way they can get in. Keep the doors closed. And when you become consciously aware, you realise it is multidimensional. We have to take back control of our vehicle, not let somebody else control our vehicle. And the moment we do that, we're back in control of the game.
And the easiest way to do that is?
Point zero. Be the observer of the game without actions or reactions. When you observe the game, you start to see things around you. You start to see how people around you are trying to suck you into their game. The moment you start to get cleared, you're going to come under attack. The attack's going to come from the mother, the father, the brother, the sister, husband, wife, friend, neighbour, whom these beings can access. And they will use the body of your friends to intimidate, manipulate, use aggression, condition, love to drag you back in the game again. Stay at point zero. Don't react. Stay and observe the game for what it is. The entities and people around you are going to get really annoyed, let's just say.
You can say it.
I'm being gentle now. Really annoyed at what's going to take place because you're really going to upset them because you're not feeding them anymore. They need you as a food source. If you're not going to feed them, they're going to go somewhere else to get fed.
This is what I was talking about earlier when I asked if you'd read Bob Munro's books, because Bob Munro, I should say, because he you know, was having all these out-of-body experiences, and he encountered this inspect, this intelligent species, he called it, which turned out to be, you know, his higher self, so to speak, but he didn't realize it at the time. Anyway, they basically told him that planet Earth is like a dairy farm, and we're being harvested, and the entities that are doing the harvesting of us energetically refer to the energy source as whoosh, so L-O-O-S-H. So it's this theme just comes up. I mean, it's from so many different places. Even Jupiter Ascending, the Wachowski brothers movie that just came out, it's right there in your face. They basically spell it out to us that we are harvested.
But this is the end of the cycle. It's always the end of the cycle. It's always been the time of the harvest. But the harvesting is about the souls. It's about, and this is where the word repossession comes from, to repossess the vehicle. And what we do, we trap them in our game and then we release them to release. In other words, release a contract. We release them under our terms and conditions so they can't invade another being. Or else we trap them into a time where they can't get out of it. It's to understand how the game works and how to trap them in the game.
Wow.
So their aim is to repossess the vehicle because they need the vehicles for the future cycles. That's why the genetic engineering changes to the vehicle. That's why they're changing the atmosphere to try and suit them for the next cycle. More radiation in the atmosphere. All this is about changing the atmosphere so they can take up bodies.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the end of the cycle, is that the same thing that you're talking about, this 10-year period that we're in now?
What takes place, can you imagine a spring? And the spring it's a continuation of time and space as a spring. Take any point on the spring, go back exactly 360 degrees, and you're a deja vu where it's all happened before. The past and present are going to set the future. So in the future cycle we're looking at now is what's happened in the past. If we in the present change the past, we actually change destiny of the future. But wait, that peak we're in, we're at that peak now of change. In that peak, we're entering the new dimension. They need to trap as many back in the game as they can, because what's happening as an equal opposite to all things, there is a visible world and there is an invisible world merging. As the two worlds merge, things from the invisible world are coming through into this world. When the conjunction takes place, at that moment of conjunction, you can be in either of the worlds.
Are you suggesting, well, how's that going to play out in terms of our everyday reality?
As it is, you wouldn't even know. You have no idea what's taking place. It's just everyday reality is taking place as normal. You know, you will become aware of other things around there as more things are coming through. You will become aware of your friends are opening doors, and you'll see the changes and the features of these things come through. You'll see more aggression in some of the beings that are coming through. Other than that, everything's going to be normal.
I wanted to ask you, let's go back to the drugs thing, the medication thing. You mentioned that ice invites a particular kind of entity in. What about really, really common stuff like the antidepressants? What do you see there?
Well, this is where you got to take it to a new level. Einstein said every experiment we did was influenced by the observer in the room. Now we take it to a new level. Everything's alive. Well, hang on. If everything's alive and I'm the scientist creating an antidepressant, then what's the thought intent into the life form of the antidepressant? It says, I have to keep you depressed so you'll feed me. The sleeping tablets. I have to keep you awake so you'll feed me, then I'll give you rest. The cocaine. I'm going to make life miserable until you feed me, then I'll give you a break. Everything is alive and trying to take over the being. So you've got the cocaine entity, you've got the ice entity, you've got all these different other dimensional beings that are life forms that are alive but seeking their own survival. But then you're going to come back to nature again and realise, okay, how does nature work? Equal force against equal force creates null and void. So if you get it locked in, you hit it at 180 degrees of its own frequency, blow it out of the system, all of a sudden it cancels it. And what was is no more. You can cancel these things out.
I think that's the first time I've actually understood.
Say again? You broke up.
I was just saying, I think that's the first time I've actually understood that mechanism of how that works.
Because you just got to realise that if everything in life is alive, then everything is going to seek its own survival, because every living force, everything alive seeks survival. And the only way it can seek survival is by reproducing itself within its host. But after a while, they get hungry and they need more. Yeah, think about it. And when you start to look at it that way, it takes you to a whole new level of understanding that everything, as Einstein said, everything is alive, and every experiment they did was influenced by the observer of the room, because just the intent of the observer has an intent into the creation of whatever's been created. That's the first law, is intent. Then the second's the agreement. You agree to go and take the stuff the doctor gives you, thank you. You just entered the game.
And this is where, it's that dependency thing, that complete disempowerment thing that we want people to move beyond.
Yeah, look, I can't I can't push it enough to realise that the human species is a multidimensional being. He has many dimensions to himself, and he has to understand all those dimensions. For only by understanding the dimensions will he really understand himself. Most people, I sat on the courts for 8 weeks, and I listened to every kid going through. I don't know, Your Honour, why I keep doing the same thing over and over. He's stuck in time. I don't know, Your Honour, we'll have a few beers. It's like somebody takes over. It does. The spirit's telling you out of the body, but no one's listening to it. If you start to listen to what's being said, you realise the spirit's talking out of the body, is trying to give you keys to clear what's going on. But no one's listening to it. Instead, they make it worse by using more medication or more drugs instead of clearing the dimensions. You know, we could save billions in the hospital system, medical bills. If we had people trained in every hospital, in every children's ward, if we had people trained in the old people's homes to deal with those, if we had people trained to deal with the cause of the effect of why something is. You know, I've had some of my clients, they're actually students now, but they came as clients. And one of them had been seeing a psychiatrist for 8 years. One session, we got to what they couldn't get to in 8 years. She then became a student, and now she's out there teaching it.
Yes.
You know, they're not dealing with the cause of why something is.
No.
And you've got to understand the cause of an effect. Everything that's taking place is an effect. It had a cause. You've got to find where it came from. And saying to the spirit of the person that knows how, where, when, and why it was created. And it could have been created 5,000 years ago in a past life. And it still keeps coming every lifetime, setting itself up until you go back in time, find where it came from and change it. This is why you get a lot of people way back in time. And what happens is that you get a lot of victim, lifetime after lifetime victim, till we go back in time and show them what they did to set it up. The moment they see, all of a sudden they see how they were the perpetrators. They came back as a victim, didn't like it, got stuck in the victim mode. Thank you, lifetime after lifetime. Until they go back and see what they did. The universe doesn't pass judgment. It says, nothing wrong, nothing right. Whatever you create in your reality, that's okay. If you want to go to war, mutilate and kill, that's fine. But you must learn what it's like to be mutilated and killed. Only then will you understand your reality with the rest of reality. Only then can we have balance.
It's that simple.
It is that
and
simple.
Yet that complex.
And the universe is so, it really is. And it's like when you're working with it all the time and you see just how simple it is in nature, then you understand the value of the Aboriginal culture in its past, how it was truly such a spiritual being and aware of nature and everything in nature being alive back in time. And you look at today and realise how far off track we've got. You know, you go in areas where, like we go in where the genocide's taking place. We bring the spirits through, kill through genocide. We haven't talking out the bodies on the table. We change time, change what happens so it can't in the future. But where this genocide took place, they built all these houses. You got trauma in an area. You go through, cut down all the trees, you traumatise the trees. Then you build houses where you've created all this trauma and you wonder why this trauma takes place in some of these relationships. You've just moved in an area of trauma. You've moved in an area where there's death trauma. It's still active. It's going to have an influence on you in that area till we clear those areas.
100%.
Wow. Well, Steve, we've got maybe a couple of minutes left. If you wanted to, I've got to say it's been absolutely enthralling listening to you.
I want to listen to you for hours.
Perhaps Amy and you can have a session after.
Well, we're actually having a session
with James.
With James in Sydney in a few weeks. So that's going to be very fascinating.
You'll enjoy. You'll enjoy and watch the changes. Yeah. Yeah, well, we're if you go to the website, www.holographickinetics.com, and if you want to email, you can email us from there. Future seminars, we'll have the dates of the future seminars on there from future seminar section. There's 90-odd pages of information in there and different types of cases and case studies for people to look through. Just tip of the iceberg of areas so people are aware of so many different areas we're getting into that's out there today. And we're finding new areas that aren't even in there yet. We're still constantly, researching, and our students are coming up with new things and letting them know what they've found and we get together every now and put together and we're finding new areas. Let's go down this road. Let's try this because we're getting results from 1 or 2 here. Let's see how this goes. There are so many areas today that holographic kinetics gets to because we look at man as being a hologram of time, and every thought process is a fractal to that hologram, and fractals just reproduce themselves for the hologram. So you're stuck in time with the fractals. Change the fractals, change the hologram.
Yeah.
Do you have a practitioner or a directory on your website? So if people are in Perth or Melbourne or wherever, they can find someone who can work with them?
Well, we do have a website in there with a number of the practitioners, states and overseas.
Okay.
We've only put some of the top practitioners in there. You know, I'm very thorough. And for me to be pushing someone, I've got to know, okay, how's the program? First, it's a 7-day teaching program. Then I get the students, come back, and second time they pick up so much more. And like the second time they come back, we only charge them $50 a day to repeat, which is, nothing. Some of them come back every single time because they want to learn, because we're upgrading all the time. And each time they come back, they pick up more and more because I'm trying to get 40 years into a week. That's getting the tip of the iceberg. So the more they come back, and then we take them and put them at the table with students, and we keep moving them up to another level, up as we go. So as they're constantly learning, and we're observing where they're coming from. Only when I know when a student knows what he's doing totally, will I start putting him in, pushing him for pushing clients onto them from around the country, around the world. You get some people come and you get what I call the cowboys out there. And some people, they think they take a bit of information and they can go out and they can play around with it. This isn't to be played around. This is real. And I have seen people that have been killed by other dimensions for their ignorance. You've really got to know what you're doing. You can't afford to be playing around with something in this area without knowing. I teach my students the right way of doing things, but now I just need to see that confidence building up in them. I need to see that they're achieving those results for the clients, because they should be. If you're doing it right, then you get clients and you get the results from the clients every time. That's the beauty of this. The thing is, it works because it is so unique in the fact it's accessing the spirit of the being, and the spirit wants to be cleared. Your spirit wants to be cleared. So it's telling you what it is that's affecting it, so it can move on. It doesn't want to be trapped in the vehicle anymore. It wants to be able to keep evolving through time and in other dimensions, you see. So it's always ready to work with you and tell you what it is that we need. It's only sometimes you get the ego takes over.
Yeah.
Some egos think they know it all, and okay, you still need your lessons.
Well, Steve, let's hope there's some more lessons to come from you in future. But we're going to have to leave you for now. But thank you so much for this. The 2 hours you've just spent with us, it's been amazing.
You're more than welcome, and I hope the listeners out there receive a little bit of good advice and listen to their spirits, because I'm sure their spirits dying for them to listen to them. It just wants to share itself and be listened to. It's like, if I acknowledge you, you'll acknowledge me. If you acknowledge your spirit, it's going to acknowledge you.
And this is...
Start to acknowledge their spirit, you'll start to work with them.
Exactly. That's where we start getting authentic-looking human beings, hey?
Yes. And genuine, people will genuinely make changes to their features as we start clearing things. It's fascinating to watch. I say to my students, the first day, we take photos the first day, and then the last day, go around the room again, look at everybody and see features totally change as we're clearing all the layers off them.
Yeah, wow.
Oh, that's amazing.
I look forward to my training, mate.
What an amazing...
No trouble. It's been good talking to you, and hope we catch up again.
Absolutely.
We definitely
look after
shall.
yourself in the meantime, Steve, and thanks again.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers. Bye for now.
Freedom, disclosure, equality, consciousness. This is GFM Media with Brendan D. Murphy and Amy Devlin, and you are the global freedom movement. New consciousness, new media.